So yeah, my name is Robbie Gaston, and I want to start with a quick introduction. So I brew with, or in the past I brewed with these two guys. This is Hugh and this is Tim. We're casually known as 6 Foot Brew Co. I'm actually the shortest at 6'2". Hugh is 6'5", and Tim is a giant 6'10". So I'm the little guy, which you can't often say. So, well, I can't often say. So, yeah, so you can see our kit here. This brew shed, this is how we kind of started out. A very simple tea urn, mash tun, nothing fancy. You start out with plastic fermenters. Yeah, so quick introduction. I met these guys in our local pub. Hugh was the landlord, and Tim was another a customer who lived on my road. So we got to know each other quite well, quite quickly. As you can see, yeah, we brewed together in spring 2015. Our first competition was London 2016, where we didn't medal, but the feedback was invaluable, so I'll come on to that, more of that in a second. So like I said, yeah, a simple brew kit in a garden shed. I basically got a Burco boiler, tea urn, Esky cool box, copper coil for chilling. We soon found that temperature control would be crucial. We weren't really getting the results that we wanted. Temperature control made a massive difference. And then we splashed out on a SS Brewtech brew bucket, which is a lovely piece of kit. I mean, it's not necessarily, I wouldn't say it's necessary to make great beer, but it's just nice to have a nice bit of stainless kit with a racking on. So I don't brew with Hugh anymore because he's moved away, and I brew with a guy called Joao, who Simon introduced me to. Great guy. I think collaboration is really important. It's great to share ideas. You don't always agree on everything, but it's nice to have someone to bounce ideas off, and and also it's important to kind of be able to share the expense of kit and ingredients, because as you all know, like if you're going to try and make hoppy beers, but these kind of hops are very expensive. So if you can split the costs and you're going to try and make a really punchy beer, it can really help. So yeah, I forgot to say, I'd like to thank my sponsors, Citra, Mosaic, Amarillo, Simcoe, and not forgetting one of my favourites, Galaxy. So feedback in London 2016 was really, really helpful and valuable. It scored our Imperial Stout, Zari Night, which we brewed for Christmas, hence the name. It got 34, which is reasonable, pretty good score. But then we got feedback that it was probably a little bit too bitter, so we dialed back the bitterness, made a few other tweaks, and then it got third best in show at the National off the back of that, and then scored 45 in another competition. So I think if you can really look at the feedback, if the judges have done their job properly, then you can really, across a whole variety of areas, you can take that feedback to improve your beer. Okay, so I've split the talk into a few sections. The first is preparation. So I would say if you're going to if you really want to go far in competitions and medal, I think it's incredibly important to familiarise yourself with the BJCP guidelines, because that's what the judges will be judging your beers on. And I think that get to work out which beers you like to brew, and then use whatever brewing software it is, be it Beersmith is what I would recommend. And that will be able to give you the different settings that you want to get your brew. So like gravity, starting gravity, finishing gravity, colour, bitterness, and then you compare what you're trying to do against the guidelines. I say that's a really great starting point. I mean, it probably goes without saying, but I think that's invaluable feedback. Resources that I find very useful starting out is Brewdog's DIY dog for recipes. I know Brewdog split opinion, but the recipes are great for things like grain percentages and how you build your grain bill. So if you're going to do, I love brewing Imperial Stouts, but I think it's really important to work out just look at other recipes and see what percentages of the grains they've used, especially the dark grains, because I would definitely not recommend, doing an Imperial Stout with loads and loads of black malt, because it's very ashy and acrid and a drying effect. So you've got to tread carefully with those kind of things. And I think the more you familiarise yourself with clone recipes that the professionals are doing, that can only help whenever you're doing it, on a smaller scale. Other resources, Andy Parker's camera book is great for recipes, as is Greg Hughes' book for people starting out. The Brewlosophy podcast is excellent. Often I find that I've been wondering about should I do this or should I do that, and more often than not, the Brewlosophy guys will have done an experiment for that exact thing. They don't always reach a fantastic conclusion that they're not going to solve it, but it's good to kind of look at how they got on, because they obviously give the beers to people to test and get their feedback. YouTube channels including Chop and Brew, The Barley and the Hops, Clawhammer Supply, they're all really good for basic, instructional, straightforward brew days. Their practices are dialed down, so being able to watch what they do can only be a good thing. So more specifically in relation to competitions, I think everyone should familiarise yourself with off flavours. It's not a fun thing, and to be honest, and I absolutely cannot stand diacetyl. And if I have it in a commercial beer, it really, really pisses me off, because for me it just reeks of a bit of lazy brewing, and I think it's avoidable. But I think that the judges will be well versed in off flavours, because speaking to some judges this weekend, they've experienced some pretty gnarly off flavours. And if you don't know, I mean, one of them's baby sick, and so you want to know what those things are and definitely work out how you can avoid them. So there's a website, Beer and Brewing, and they have gone through the different off flavours, and they tell you how to avoid them basically. And the likes of diacetyl, it's all just good practice. So oxygenate your work before pitching, try and avoid getting oxygen in towards the end of your brew, do a diacetyl rest where possible, those kind of things. Water. So James Wilson's just done a really good talk on water. Pete Hughes did a fantastic one that Sarah filmed up in Leeds, and I advise everyone to go and watch it, because water can be quite scary and daunting, but those sorts of talks really break it down into the basic levels, which I think is what you want. I brew in London, and we've got terrible hard, high alkaline water. So people like Murphy's are great, because you can get a water report specifically for your area, and they will sell, it's a great business model, they will sell you AMS to be able to treat your water to bring that alkalinity down to give you a good starting point. So yeah, that's moving on, process. So I think I would say to anyone, just brew as much as you can and work out which styles you like to drink, because you're going to have to drink a whole batch of it, so you don't want to drink something you don't necessarily you don't want to brew lots of wee heavy or something like that. If it's not your thing, I wouldn't want to do that. I'm an American Pale Ale, New England IPA, Imperial Stout kind of guy. So they're my three favourites. So that's what I brew and like to brew with my friends. So yeah, just keep brewing it and work out what worked well, make loads of notes, and then if you think that you can work out why something went wrong, then fix it for the next brew, and that's how you improve. And I think it's really, really good, a really good feeling to know that you've made a change, one change, two changes, and if it's visible, especially if you get feedback off the back of that, then I think it's really rewarding. So yeah, experiment, try different things. Also in relation to competition, if you've got a beer and say, we've all been there, you've bought 4 entries and the competition's looming and you're like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to brew 4 beers. I think adding fruit, spice, or oak chunks or any type of wood is great, because it gives you another entry. And often, your base beer isn't necessarily going to be spiced, so you can enter into fruit or spice, and then it's a good way to experiment and get feedback. So, also on feedback, get feedback from friends, get them to be objective. Obviously people love free beer, but I think objective feedback, and so getting to know like Mike Carter through Homebrew Club and other judges, it's really, really good, because sometimes you will, with the best will in the world, you will set out to brew a certain style of beer, and it may not come out how you wanted it. So if you get it in front of a judge and they can say, maybe do a different style, I think that's invaluable. Professional brewers always bang on about drink fresh, but I think you should use fresh ingredients. It's like cooking. You wouldn't cook with moldy old things, so why would you do it with old malt or old hops? Don't use 2016. I would never personally use any old hops in a brew that I was going to enter the competition. Temperature control is probably the most important thing. When we got temperature control, it made a huge difference to our beers. Just a simple under-the-counter fridge with a greenhouse heater and Inkbird thermostat, and it works wonders, because you really can, I would say, brew like a pro. You can eke esters out from the yeast. You can do a diacetyl rest towards the end of fermentation. You can lower temp for dry hopping if you want to do that, and you can cold crash, which is great for the beer's appearance, because ultimately it's a big part of the judging process, and you want your beer to look nice. Scheduling is also incredibly important. I've fallen foul of this, I'm sure we all have. So you've got to really work out in advance that your imperial stouts will benefit from time in bottle. If you brew an imperial stout and you taste it, it might not be how you thought it was going to turn out, but given time, it can really develop in the bottle and be ready. So brew those well in advance and brew enough that you can bottle more and keep them to your side, because then you can, if you haven't scheduled well or you haven't been able to brew, you've got these bottles that you can go back and enter. Conversely, New England IPAs and American Pale Ales, you want as fresh as possible. I really recommend kegging if you've got the space and the money, I suppose, because bottling conditioning and competition storage don't always mix. Because people send the bottles with partial force / partial farce, and they end up broke. Sarah will tell you all about that. Broken bottles, etc. So, and nobody likes bottling. So I'm a big advocate for kegging. So general points in conclusion: learn from the judges' feedback and improve or tweak your processes. Also some feedback in terms of what the judges might tell you. So like they'll say, use less of this malt if they're able to pick it out, or maybe try different hops, or in relation to your fermentation profile, things like that. The judges want you to do well. They want to judge you well. I know they're looking out for off flavours and they're looking out for faults, but they want you to do well. So take the feedback on board and improve the process. I brew in styles that are what I'd say kind of like really hop forward or really pushing flavours, so like imperial stouts and New England IPAs. And I think if you want to stand out against the other competitors, I think you need to push the ABV to the top of style, mash high and push the body as well, and so you try and get your beer to stand out. So go big or go home. You don't brew a New England IPA, say that's towards the bottom of the ABV, it will probably get forgotten about. Try your beer after you've received the feedback and compare your thoughts with the judges and try and be objective. So why do you want a medal? I'll be honest, it's a little bit addictive. Once you win a medal, it's nice. Everyone likes praise and well, it's not just me, but yeah. So we got to brew at the Colonel, which is personal life aside, definitely one of the best days of my life. 4 Pure as well, got to brew there, and we've got a brew day at Redemption. They are really good prizes, and also you can win some nice sexy kit. So. Okay, to conclude, so I feel like I'll be waffling, but relax, don't worry, and have a home brew. Things will go wrong. We've had some absolute disasters of power cuts. I've blown a plug, our boiler blew a plug in our flat. Then we moved out to my porch, and we used an extension cable, and for some reason the boiler was cutting out, and Hugh is one of the 3 from 6 foot. I got him to hold his finger on the reset button to override. I was like, I don't care about your, you might get blown up or whatever. We need to finish this brew day. So there he is, holding his finger over it, risking life and death. And then Tim shows up and he's like, "What the hell are you guys doing?" And he unfurls the extension cable so that we were no longer creating a fireball. But that beer, I think that's the beer that came 3rd best in show at the National. So good things can come from. Don't worry about it. If things go wrong, there's always a way. We had a beer as well, just quickly, that failed as a milk stout. We entered into competition, and the feedback was, it's not a great milk stout. 8 months down the line, we hadn't scheduled very well, and we were like, we need a beer. Let's try this beer, and with the help of Mike Carter, other people's advice, they were like, enter it as a dark mild. So we enter it in a dark mild. I feel a bit bad about this. 8 months in bottle. We enter it as a dark mild into a Black Friday lab competition, and it won best in show. The judges one of the judges, fair play to the judge, he said this would make a good sweet / milk stout. So he spotted that it was a bit of a ringer in there. But I think we're all human, and I think also another point, just quickly, that once you've gone through the initial scoring, then it's kind of it's the BJCP in a way a little bit goes out the window, I think, and it's who knows what could happen to your beer. So don't get too hung up on the initial feedback. So yeah, final point. Good luck to everyone. Anyone who's got beers in the competition, by the way. So good 2/3. Good luck, and please don't mock me whenever I don't medal. Me being here is based on past glories. So please do not mock me. And I think some of the scores are up, by the way, but I haven't been brave enough to look. I thought I'd wait and do this talk first. So, but yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Any questions? Go ahead.
Can you also age the Imperial Stout in a keg rather than bottling?
I don't see why not. Sarah is an expert in Imperial Stouts, and she's nodding. I haven't yet because we've only semi-recently started to do kegging, but I don't see why not. It'd be interesting experiment side by side to do a cooled age and a room temperature. Another admission. So we've had an Imperial Stout, and it seems like the batch will never end, but it finally has come to the end now. Just one goal actually at the Welsh, so we really like the beer, but we do secretly uncap it slightly to release the carbonation. So there are tricks of the trade that you can, But yeah, so be prepared. Like I'd say, if you're going to do an Imperial Stout, make sure it's finished. Depending on how you're going to carb it, be careful with the carbonation as well. But yeah, I think they definitely benefit from long aging.
Okay, thanks.
Plastic bottles. You can get some rather nice half-litre brown plastic bottles from the screw top. They're great for releasing carbonation. Is there anything against them?
No, there'll be better people. No, there's people in the room that are shaking their heads. No, and I think they are competition organisers seem to like them because they don't break, and they are great, as you say, for knowing when beers are carbonated. Yeah. So no, I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with those.
Do you mind if I just?
Okay, Jerry's. There's always one, Jerry. Thanks.
If I just speak to that plastic bottle point?
Yes, go ahead.
Plastic bottles, it does depend on the competition. I can speak as the organiser of the Welsh. We've always welcomed them. Check the bottle acceptance rules for the competition because I know some competitions have said no. The other thing to bear in mind, I wouldn't recommend keeping beer in them in a long time. The plastic cap is oxygen permeable, so you could end up with oxidised beer if you keep it in there 6 months.
That's right. Any other questions? Fine.
What would you say is the most valuable bit of feedback you got from any of the judges?
Well, that is a difficult question. I think so what's the most valuable piece of feedback I've had from judges? I think the one about the Imperial Stout was really, really valuable because that is a crucial thing for making Imperial Stouts, and it will change over time. Like if you have made it too bitter, that will settle down over time. But I think just to dial back the bitterness because it might have been too fresh, but it just taught us. We were in the early stages of brewing, and it taught us the importance of balance. And I think across the board, balance is, as you know as a judge, balance is. You want to be. Although I did big up the fact about flavour and IDV and things, but you want to be within those limits. So balance is obviously crucial. Any other? Oh, there's some at the back.
Okay, so what's the size of your bottle that you usually enter to the competition?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. How many?
How many bottles do you usually enter into?
It depends on the competition. Sometimes 2. I think it was 2 for the Welsh, 3 for BrewCon, so it really depends. I think I'm loath to give up a lot of beer for competitions, and I'm always entering competitions, so it's a real bugbear. Like, you're giving up 1.5 litres of Imperial Stout that you really, So I'd say it depends on the beer. It depends how much you feel personally about the beer and how you think it's going to do well. I wouldn't get too hung up on the size. It just depends on how much you want to enter. Again, check the guidelines for the competition. They're quite flexible, usually. I mean, I've seen some corked and caged bottles and 750 bottles, and it really depends on how flexible the organisers are. But I would just mix it up on whatever bottles I've got to hand. I mean, it's a bit of a pain now that everyone is canning because there are a lot, I'm sure everyone's the same. You have fewer bottles lying around because people are drinking from cans more and more nowadays, so it's a bit of an issue. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I've heard some people argue that you've got more chance of doing well targeting less popular styles versus going into the IPAs.
Yeah.
If you're purely looking to do well in terms of winning stuff, is there any merit in that approach?
It's a really, really good question. I think there's probably people in the room who are better qualified to answer it because I just go for like I said, New England IPAs, American Pale Ales, Imperial Stouts. But I think there is, if you're really confident that you can nail the style, then I think it's worth experimenting with, definitely. And because you can really stand out. Your beers will, it is a point, your beers will be gripped into tables and they will be judged if they go like a mini best of show and stuff, they will be judged against each other. So there's a whole load of other parameters in there. But yeah, if you're confident that you can brew, if you love like a weird style, like say like an Italian grape ale, or something, my friend Joao that I brew with makes a great grape ale. So if you think that you can make a really good one, then yeah, go for it. I think there's merit in that.
The thing to bear in mind with that is try and pick a style which is about 7 or 8 entries, so you've got enough that it's not going to be combined with something else.
Great shot, yeah.
But not so many that you've got 30 beers in that one category.
Yeah. One final question? Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Ian.
Right. So you mentioned earlier about taking notes as you go along. That's something I always aspire to do. I'm concentrating on the brewing and also the drinking as well.
Yes.
So do you actually have a methodical way for forcing yourself to take these notes? Do you have a... Beersmith will have those fields and stuff.
Yes.
How do you actually...
Yeah, Beersmith is good because of the way it prints out and has the spaces, so you naturally work through those on a brew day. I try and not drink until the boil's on, but I don't know, maybe don't always have that restraint. But yeah, I think that those sorts of things are just really good because, like you said, I think it's really helpful. I've by and large collaborated when I've brewed. Like it's not just, definitely not just me. So I brew with other people, and Tim is really methodical, and he's a maths teacher. So those sorts of the numbers are really, that's his bag. Whereas it's less so mine. So Tim, I think, is really good at making those notes, and I brew less with Tim now, so I'm kind of having to take on that responsibility. So it's just getting used to that process, and I think having a sheet there with the spaces just really helps because then you remember to, even if you're drunk, you remember to take the readings. And then for things like the gravity as it goes along as well, like I just use the bottom of the sheet on BrewSmith and just do the dates that I've done the diacetyl rest and just the gravity and the finishing, just so that you've got it, so you can look back and compare. I just think that otherwise you're not going to remember. You aren't going to remember. So just make notes, guys.
Right. Thanks ever so much.
Thanks.